Recognized around the world as one of history's greatest pieces of architecture, the Parthenon in Athens is seen as a splendid example of pre-Christian Greece. But what most people do not know is that for the longest part of its history, the Parthenon was a church. Talking about a famous landmark from a non-Christian culture might come as a surprise on a channel that talks about the early church. But there are some interesting things to learn about the Parthenon's history, and some interesting things to learn about how Christianity affects and transforms a culture. The Parthenon is a building located in the city of Athens in Greece. It stands on a tall outcrop of rock known as the Acropolis. It is one of several buildings there. The Acropolis comes from Greek words that mean the highest point in the city. The Acropolis is not far from the Areopagus in Athens, where Paul the Apostle preached in the book of Acts. At the time that he stood at the Areopagus, he could have looked up and seen the Parthenon, which at his time would have been around 500 years old. Paul's sermon at the Areopagus, despite being a place surrounded by Greek paganism, was a sermon that did not attack the Greek pagan religion. In this sermon, Paul pointed out the altar that he had seen to the unknown God, and Paul taught the Greeks who this unknown God was. He preached Christ not as some foreign religion to come and replace the Greek religion, but he preached Christ as that unknown God, as that finality, the unknown completion of the Greek religion. He was preaching to them that Christ was for the Greek people as much as he was for any other people on earth. Christ was the one for whom they had been seeking, even if they hadn't known it. The success of the missionary work of the Christians didn't happen overnight. It took several centuries, but Greece was eventually transformed into a country full of Christianity. Today it is a country known for its Orthodox Christian faith. Countless monasteries, churches, and saints have come from Greece. By the time Paul arrived in Athens, the Parthenon had been several things. It had originally been a treasury, and it is believed that for its early history after that, it was a temple to the goddess Athena, whose statue was outside the building and seen from all over Athens. Athena was sometimes called the Virgin Goddess, and the word Parthenon comes from the Greek word Partheni, meaning virgin. Over the centuries, the Parthenon was damaged and rebuilt, it was attacked and restored, and remained there on top of the Acropolis. In the 5th century, however, the Parthenon was turned into a church. At this point in time, the Parthenon had been a pagan site for 850 years. From this point, it remained a Christian church for over 1,000 years. It was at first dedicated as the Church of the Holy Wisdom, or in Greek, the Hagia Sophia. It was later renamed after the Theotokos, the Holy Blessed Virgin. And it is during this Christian era that the Parthenon actually became famous outside of Athens. It achieved more love and more recognition in its time as a Christian church than it had ever had before as a pagan temple. The Parthenon housed the relics of many famous saints. It housed a copy of the Gospels owned by Saint Helena, and it housed an icon painted by the hand of Luke the Evangelist himself. From all over Athens, the Parthenon could be seen, as could the cross on its roof. When people looked up at the Parthenon, they thought of Christ. Thousands of people traveled from all over the world to Athens to see the Parthenon, to see the church there. In the 13th century, wars and frictions between the East and the West were starting to become a lot more practically seen, and this resulted in an invasion from the West, from Italy, of Athens. The Parthenon was taken away from the Orthodox Church and given to the Catholic Church. It then continued as a Catholic Church for 250 years. Then came invasions from the opposite direction, and the Catholics were deposed by the Turkish invaders. They were removed from the church, and the Turks, strangely enough, gave the Parthenon back to the Orthodox Church. This didn't last very long, however, as a failed uprising against the Turkish invaders resulted in the Turks deciding to punish the Christians by removing their rights to the Parthenon. The Christians were kicked out, and the Parthenon was stripped bare from all of its Christian associations. The mosaics were torn down, the altar was thrown away. And here ended the Christian history of the Parthenon. The Parthenon has been many things, but for the longest period of time, the Parthenon was a Christian church. After this point, when the Turks kicked out the Christians, it was for a little while a mosque. But then came more wars, and in the 17th century there was a war between the Turks of Athens and the Venetians. The Parthenon was used at this point as a storehouse for gunpowder, and it's possible that they did this thinking that no one would ever shoot a building as beautiful as the Parthenon. And of course, someone did. A direct hit from the Venetians hit the Parthenon, resulting in a catastrophic explosion that destroyed the roof and rained rubble all over the city of Athens. Many of these pieces of brick were then used in other construction and other works, and the Parthenon sat in ruins for a very tragically long time. Going on through the late 17th century, visitors from the west started travelling into Greece again. And there is an interesting story in 1682 that an English traveller visited the ruins of the Parthenon. There was not much in here by this point. Much of the expensive marble and treasures from the Christian history and from any history had been looted. However, he did notice at the time the remnants of an icon of Our Lady there on the Parthenon wall. The Turks were still in Athens at this point, and he asked, why has this icon been left when every other religious image has been stripped away? And the story was that one Turkish soldier had tried to fire a musket at the icon, and his hand had withered as soon as he pulled the trigger, so no one had bothered to remove it. Over time, however, what was left of the art faded away, and today only very faint outlines of Christian iconography can still be seen in the ruins of the Parthenon, which is visited by millions of visitors every single year. So why then does nobody know this about the Parthenon? Why has this history been forgotten? And the reasons are varied, but after the Reformation of Western Europe, surprisingly many Protestants lost interest in the old Christian stories of saints and heroes, and strangely found an interest in Greek pagan mythology. And so Greek mythology became popular once again in the West, and so when Western visitors came to Athens, they looked at the Parthenon and saw it as this remnant from that beautiful Greek mythology that they loved. But they didn't stop to look and see what had happened between the age of Greek mythology and the Christian age that Greece was living in now. And so the Parthenon is seen by many around the world today as something that brings to mind the Greek gods or the ancient Greek philosophers, and not the Theotokos, and not the 1,000 years of Christian history that it had within it. But it is an interesting thing to think about. Here was a building dedicated at first to a virgin goddess, and soon it was dedicated to a human virgin, so it was in a sense humbled. But that human virgin also gave birth to God incarnate, the one true God, and so in a sense the building was raised higher than it had ever been in any point in time in which it was dedicated to Athena. And inside the building, Christ was worshipped, the one true God, the one that all Greek philosophy and all Greek teaching had been leading towards, the one that all cultures and all religions in the world are searching for, even if for now he remains to them an unknown God. True Christianity does not discard the things that came before it. It takes them and lifts them higher. It offers them to Christ. And that is what the Christians of Athens did with the Parthenon, with the entire Acropolis, with the Areopagus, and with the entire city. And while it is natural for us to build beautiful buildings to the glory of God, to use beautiful parts of our culture to the glory of God, it is also natural for us to feel a little bit sad at the loss of these buildings, at the loss of the Parthenon as a Christian church. And we need to remember what Paul preached at the Areopagus. He may have been looking up at the Acropolis when he said that the Lord of heaven and earth does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. What Paul said there, in sight of the Parthenon in the first century in Athens, rings true around the world today. We are all the offspring of God. And as usual, every single episode is accompanied with a cup of tea, which we drink as we create it. And today we are having oolong tea, which is a tea that is halfway between black tea and green tea and needs to be prepared as such. So hotter water than green tea, but not boiling water like black tea. It's about 90 degrees. And it's a beautiful tasting tea. If you enjoyed this video, or if you've been enjoying the videos on this channel, please consider supporting our work and the continuance of us making these videos by donating to us via our Ko-Fi link. At that link there is also a small web store where you can buy mugs like this.